I've only been in the spiritual world for about, I would say, 2 years now, max. And although, you can sometimes get a bit religious, you can be in that realm of seeing like luck support you, and you're like, wow, look at that. I just had this great lot of luck. But at the point I am now, I still have little questions. I like to experiment and just double check to make sure that the energy is actually legitimate. And I was saying before, my friend's got this geo cave, this geo rock formation that's a gem. And if you put your hand inside it, you start to feel your hand get tingly. And every time I do it, I pull my hand out and I'm like, okay, energy's real. Energy, that is something that you can't really put tangibly into words. But when you put your hand in there, something changes and you pull your hand out and it's not there anymore. And that is something that's just not really it's tangible enough for me to get my belief and my momentum going back into really diving into, this is the world that I live in. This is the world that I'm quite passionate about.
Love it. Amazing.
Mm.
So your experiences are, as much as they are about flow, which we'll probably get into today, who knows?
Yeah,
There's also about your first-hand interrelationship with what you're seeing around you and seeing beyond that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And even when you say flow, it's the beauty of flow is that the flow can only exist if there is an opposite to it, and I believe the mind is the opposite to flow.
Mm.
And I've come from that very psychological, scientific background of questioning how that works. The mind has been built in that structuralistic way to endorse these behaviors. And flow, on the other hand, actually really lets go of the mind and surrenders to a point where the universe, the universe's mind then takes over instead. So you're almost letting go of your own mind to tap into the universe's mind or flow, and you get a whole different experience. And both are equally valid because they serve the whole point of us being here, which is to experience. There are missions and there are goals, and yet you must respect everyone's position in their life, because if someone is experiencing something for a certain amount of time, that is a unique experience to experience it for that amount of time, where you can't compare if you've only, if someone went through a breakup and they were grieving over it for 2 years versus someone who went through a breakup and grieved over it for 6 months. There is a significant difference of grieving for that amount of time versus this amount of time. And that is nourishing and refining for the soul. And when you go back into whatever happens next, I don't really like putting words to exactly what happens next. But when you go back, those two experiences crystallize and are two very unique, different experiences that can help understand more as to what reality is truly is in the end.
I love it. And so beautifully put. I always like how you speak. So this is beautiful. And yeah, on that note of your first-hand experiences and then really bringing in the higher mind to kick in, um, there's just such a gift from your wisdom to people around you and to the world with everything that you offer. So on that, let's begin. Uh, so good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks to you, I woke up early today and I got to see a little bit later than the sunrise because I just open my eyes on the bed and I see the sunrise and then just go back to sleep. So I'm doing it as long as I'm allowed to do it by my creation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really love the morning energy. It's fresh, it's beautiful. So yeah, let's start with welcoming you and allowing this amazing conversation to happen. The last chat we had was so stimulating,
Mm.
and there were also like some thoughts I never even thought to myself before.
Mm.
So you were amazing, and that's a very difficult bar to match, you know.
As long as we let that flow in, it will be whatever it really is meant to be, which is the best part. We can't really orchestrate it better than us just being ourselves. And even if we feel like we can't do it, we can just opt out and let our higher selves come through and they can look after it. You know, we can totally whatever we want to do. It's so well supported. We're so supported.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. I feel it. I agree with you. And I guess that at some point my higher mind will take over. I hope.
Yeah. Just all right. Hello. We're in.
So let's start with who you are.
Yeah.
I know that you describe yourself as Jacob Cooke Tilley. So what does it mean to be Jacob Cooke Tilley?
Goodness, that is an excellent question for this point in my life. I think Jacob Cooke Tilley is the culmination of all my experiences from childhood and working history, relationships, connections, um, and real just it's it's been a beautiful life. And to be Jacob Cooke Tilley is an honor. And sometimes I don't see it so much as how do I even put it? Right now in my life, I feel like I'm in a whole new level of relearning who I am. And that means diving back through my childhood to really understand what made me me. And I haven't even gotten to my teenage years yet because there's still so much of my youth that I'm really exploring and understanding what I've been through to then that helps shape me who I am. But today, as the person who's talking on this call, I am currently a Zentai Shiatsu therapist. That's something I do for work. I also do a bit of corporate massage to really do a bit of mindless body therapy too. And I also do a bit of writing. I do a bit of philosophy engagement with myself and whatever comes through that automatic writing kind of style of things. And in some lights, people might not even know that because they only know me to be a fire spinner, which I do with my friends. And before that, some people may even know me as being a human resource manager because the last 7 years I've been working in human resource management. And recently I've left that to start getting into this world of, bodies, mind, psychotherapy. It's all combining into one for me because I feel that when I was trying to support people in human resource in the corporate world, there wasn't that long lasting effect. And when I came out of my studies, again, I noticed that the the single method of just going to go see a psychotherapist or just going to go see a remedial therapist, they were very stuck within their fields. And so I'm very attracted to this new age, this modern style of combining therapy styles into one. And even with a lot of my life, I actually enjoy this adapting and bringing the new styles and trying to see where getting that all-rounded understanding of knowledge actually exists, and it even reflects in the greater world. So within, so without. You start to see how even religion, if you look at all the religions, there are even commonalities within them, and they're the things you should listen to. And so, with my life and the world around me that I exist in, it is very much a culmination of everything, not so much the singularity of one thing dominating a way of being for me. And so, Jacob Tilley is surrendering to everything that is coming through right now because I feel like I'm on my next transformation into becoming more into that world of speaking and sharing my information to help people grow and take their own path, especially in this new world that's coming very soon that is going to be a choose your own adventure, where before it was, you know, choose this one job, then build your way up and build your way up. The corner around the corner is just this unbelievable, unprecedented potential to build your life in any way you want, and sometimes that can be quite overwhelming to have all this choice. And I speak more specifically to AI because it will give you the choice to make whatever you want as long as you're creative and able to choose what you want. But sometimes the mind can get a bit overwhelmed with that. And so, what do we really have to choose in the end? And that's something that I practice every day with myself. pulling in the information from my higher self and saying, okay, this is what I'm meant to do, and trusting the feelings and sensations that I have in my body, because that is how it talks to us. It talks to us through our heart pounding. It talks to us through our gut reacting to a particular situation. And that's the stuff we can listen to in this time of, I want to say unpredictability, but in this time of unlimited choice. It really is unlimited choice. And I think that's really important for this period of my life and for everyone else that's in my current network and surrounding.
My God, that is beautiful. And there are so many branches I want to go into. Yeah, it's really profound that while you are on this journey, you're, taking people along with you. And everything that you are learning, you're sharing and exchanging and expanding in that way.
Mm.
So I was wondering, how did it all begin? This place of, so there are two parts to this. The first part is this place of transformation where you feel you are right now. What does that mean for you? Why is it here? How is it here? And what potential does it hold for you? How do you see that? And then we can even go a little back, or as back as you like,
Mm.
of what has been your story.
What has been my story, and even this transformational point? Well, we both share a friend called Emily, who is a fanatic about numbers and numerology.
Yeah.
And the first thing she told me was that, oh, you're a 5. Your life is filled with transformation and change. And that took a long time for me to kind of really understand. And yet, when I wake up every day, I've got a different routine. I've got a different way of doing things. I'm in a different state of being, and I didn't appreciate it at first, but there's actually such a great flexibility in being comfortable with so much change, because when you understand that that nothing is set, nothing is there's no permanence, you then get to also choose how you are and choose how you wish to be. And that's something I've been practicing for the last maybe since the beginning of last year. I got into, I started reading about Hermetics, which is Hermes Trismegistus. And it talks a lot about how there's the 7 laws of reality. I'm sure there's more now and whatever adapted editions, but one I really adapted to was, one I really appreciated was this idea of you choose your own state of being. And so our emotions are more of these temporary state of beings, and you can acknowledge them, but then actually choose a different emotion instead. And I think that echoes greatly into actually choosing what state of being we are and choosing what frequency we want to operate at, which is quite intentional, and can also sometimes be a bit ego driven. So you have to be cautious of that, taking over and leading us into these pathways that don't actually serve us. But for me, I found great transformation in reading content like that, and actually understand that I've got more control in how my reality is actually perceived and governed based on the way I'm actually deciding on how to receive things and actually send out information again. And you might be hearing this flow of, choosing your own reality, because for me, I kind of followed the cookie cutter style of life. I left high school and went straight into university to do a double degree of psychological science and business. The reason why I did that was because even in my high school days, I kind of foresaw the future, and I saw how, again, AI, robots were all imminent. They were all going to happen in the next 20 to 15 years in my mind. And that was 2014. I could see it. And funnily enough, when I was even younger in high school, I was like, oh, I'd love to be a masseuse. But my mum was like, nah, don't do that. It's a waste of time. Don't bother. So it's funny now how it's come full circle. But yeah, I went into university to study the 2 degrees. And once I left there, I went straight into HR. And I really started building up my ability to help employees grow and develop their capacity to do their job. And so I've always had this ability to help people build their knowledge, and now for me it's actually helping celebrate people. I really enjoy listening to people's stories and actually helping elevate different sections to make it seem as if they actually have so much more potential to give, and so much potential they're already giving. And that's just a natural affinity that I have, and gift that I have that I like to celebrate. That I guess I thought everyone might have had, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So I really enjoy listening and tapping into what people have to offer, and also gearing the information back so they can encapsulate that information and take it home with them. I feel like there's a big issue lately with information and how it's being given, and that it's quite loose with how you can interpret it, and that does serve a lot of people. But I feel like both should be offered: the ambiguity for selecting the way you want to go, and also just the straightforward method on how you want to get there. And it really speaks to those larger, quite well beyond understanding concepts such as clairaudience and clairvoyance. It's like they're staples. It's a gift, and yet no one has really taken the time to break down. Okay, you sit down and then you think of this, and then you spread your mind out like that, and we're really adding tangibility to the method of gaining those gifts, because I strongly believe everyone can do it. I don't believe anyone is restricted from it. It just might be a time thing. It might be when you get the information, and here I am ready to give the information to people. I don't have the final note to things, but I'd love to kick the conversation off so people have something to build from.
Love it. Love it. And it sounds to me like in the physical world, that this transformation is playing out as you coming out from the HR background and opening yourself and opening the world to this kind of work where they have the balance of ambiguity and structure, and you flow with that and bring through interesting insights and transformations through that. Would that encapsulate where you are right now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many avenues to it all, but that
Yeah,
summarizes it.
amazing, amazing. And there were a few layers I wanted to go into. One of the layers was that interested me was how have you found, or how are you finding the balance of what comes through the ego and what comes through the flow? Because I know that you love to work and question that and experiment that a lot with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's definitely a very prominent lesson in my life. And one thing I'm going to quickly touch on is that there may be instances where people have met me and I've been in my flow, and it's like, wow, he just understands flow. And then maybe a month or two later, I might not seem like I'm in my flow as much. And then a month later, I might be back in my flow again. And it's not so much that don't have a good control of my flow. It actually speaks to this um, this element of life here in this existence, that as we grow, we're actually meant to relearn things at that new level. And so the way we accessed things such as flow before isn't the way we need to access it anymore. It's going to be a new avenue to get there. And so it's really, really important to acknowledge that, especially with this idea of, oh, I forgot that I do it this way. Oh, now I remember how to do it. And then you just do it again, right? It's designed that way. It is very much designed that way.
Yeah, so we dropped out a little bit. So we were
That's
talking
okay.
about the last I remember is we were
Yeah.
talking about how you find a different method, or your exploration is finding your flow through flow, not through
Yeah.
structure. So you
Yeah.
can't go back to the same place and expect the flow will come. So
No,
it's an ongoing journey for you, and I guess
exactly.
for all of us. Yeah.
For a lot of people. And so that's why I want to preface that before getting into the way I access it, because it might be some methods that people might take upon themselves, but not to get frustrated on if it doesn't work forever.
Yeah.
So the way I found my flow was actually through my hands. I was at a festival and I found that it was guiding me, it was leading me, and I was just having to surrender to whatever my brain thought I should be doing, and I just trusted what was happening. And I felt this energy through, like, my, even now I can feel it in my upper arms, and it would just guide me and take me to where I need to go to next. And so then began this this practice of saying, okay, well, I feel like I want to go this way. There was this energetic attraction to move in this direction. And the mind was obviously perceiving and seeing all these things and the lights around me. Even in my own apartment, I was just like, oh, I could do that, I could do this. But my body was guiding me to somewhere else. And that is the true nature of accessing this. Not so much that I was doing, ABC to Z steps. It was just the body wants to go this way. So this just needs to trust and let go. And that's the surrendering that actually needs to occur. It's not so much a body and mind surrendering. It's actually the body allowing the lead on where to go. And I will also preface that that is the way I go about following my flow originally. It's grown to many different things that I can now tap into, because with flow, once you're in it, it's actually a bit of a momentum, I believe, at least. And it's more of your relationship with how the universe can talk to you. And so if you allow more ways for it to communicate with you, you will then be in greater styles of flow. So first, I suggested that we separate our mind from what the attraction is to do, so not judge it. Now we're talking about accelerating and increasing it. And that is how we can allow in more ways it can talk to us. So I know one way my guys like to talk to me is when I bump into something more than once. If I bump into something twice in a row, I've forgotten something and I need to remember and go check it out. And it sounds like it disrupts you from flow, but it's actually more of, again, it's setting you up, because flow, it means you're in congruence with the whole flow of reality. And so it actually speaks to that really nice interplay of, hey, you're here to choose your own reality, but also we've got some things set up for you that we'd love you to experience and do. So if you bring this extra item with you, if you set up your lunch so you're ready to do it, you'll be available to engage in these things in the way that we've set it up for you. And so this is that extra advanced level of what flow is for people sometimes, that they just get into flow and they're just surrendering all the time. And it's actually, no, you've actually got to start taking some control back, but keep an ear out for what the signs are too. And so that's flow as well.
Wow. Wow. And even with this way where you're speaking about it, I can feel the mastery in it. And I've been lucky to experience your flow and experience how you went with the places where there were clogs of energy, and then you moved everything away. And yeah, it's been incredible for me personally. So I have so much respect for how you surrender and how you flow, and what an articulate way of saying it. It just reminds me of that saying. It's not even a saying. So I was in Egypt, and my guide said that, oh, so this is where, after you mummify a body, this is where you keep the heart. This is where you keep the kidneys. This is where you keep la la la. And there was no place for the brain. She said, oh, no, no, no. They just take out the brain from the nose and it's thrown in the bin. They just keep the heart. So I guess they knew something that that head gets out of the way and the heart takes over, and through the heart your higher heart and the higher mind take over. And it just sounds so beautiful. Like I can be in a meditation when you're talking about it.
There is actually something I'd love to add to that talks about something in that interplay exchange there. And I initiated it by saying that we separate from what our mind's telling us to do and allow the body to flow. And then that advanced level is actually bringing in the choice to choose. And then I'm sure it keeps growing from there, from a point that I'm not at the capacity at. But it's actually this concept of swinging, this polarity that we move between. And it's a lot of how we can move away from, if you want to talk about God, because it's a very easy concept to move from. If we're all from God and we've come down here, we actually have to swing away to become individuals. And then when we die, we swing back into it. And so it's actually not so much there's one set thing. It's actually this this flow of back and forth to keep enriching the experience, so we're not just stuck in this way and we're just experiencing it. And so when it comes to that mind versus body thing, we actually kind of want to start bringing the mind and the body together to create that harmony. And I'm sure there's more, even more interplays of it. Maybe there's a subtle energy you can always tap into in the mind, and the mind is aware to it while flowing with flow. That could be an avenue it gets to as well. I don't fully know, but I think it's really important to understand that we swing between the many different sides of polarity constantly, and it's so honored and so important, because without it we wouldn't be experiencing as many beautiful gems as we do. So I just wanted to add that in there, because I'm a big believer of that scale of polarity. I think it's one of the most important lessons of reality.
I love that there's always a slider scale and everything is unique. And each experience in that slider scale or that swing in that pendulum is important. Wow.
Mm.
So
Helps
with that,
take
yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna, it helps take a breath when it's quite intense, and it's only intense because it's really is scaled to be that way in that experience, and then it swings back down. Even though it may not seem it that at time, it helps us really, it helps me at least comprehend that, oh, it's been really set up that way to experience it like that, and then it swings back down the other way, so you can experience it in that other way too. It's
I
quite,
love it.
I understand I'm getting a bit high level there, but for me, I'm quite, I resonate with it deeply.
Yeah, and I can tell. And even with the little and the short experience that I had of experiencing that flow with you,
Mm.
you would always use some kind of arcs to move. It wasn't like, let me pull it out and just throw it away. It wasn't like that. You were really
Yeah.
allowing the movement to take care of whatever was happening to me or
Mm.
within me. And
Yes.
I deeply resonate with that at so many levels. There can be a physical level of what I was experiencing and what you do for your clients in Zentai Shiatsu. But
Mm.
there's also that deeper level of non-judgmental space that you can hold
Yeah.
because you see everyone in the perfection of their flow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like a deepening for me, an opening point for me to ask you about something that I've always been interested in to ask you. Um, there's a
Sure.
part where you talk about dissociation and association.
Yes.
And from everything that you've shared and everything you talk about, um, at least from how I've perceived you and learned about you, I see you as incredibly embodied, incredibly within your here and now, and
Mm.
in that presence you work. So I feel like that's aspirational for me and aspirational for so many of us. And even within that, I would love to know what your journey has been between dissociation and association and what that looks like in your world now.
Mm. Okay. Well, I can put my head up and say I'm a professional at disassociating, 100%. Very much so. I think I've really mastered the ability to disassociate, and I think that a lot of my journey and the things I teach is because I've been on the other end of it, and I've found my way back to that other lens of things. And that's also a little bit why I'm like, hey, I've got to tell everyone now before I forget, because I've been dancing in the jungle and now I've come out of it. But before I forget what it was like, and I need to tell people what it was all about. So, yes, disassociation is been so heavily in my life because of the difficulties I've been through at a younger age, maybe even some of the sensory overload I've had. I've never been diagnosed with anything in particular, but I mean, I could always be in the end. However, I know the behaviors that I engaged in when I was younger was that of video games, movies, TVs. And it's not to throw quick blame onto them being an inherently bad thing, but it's actually the amount of time that I was using them for. Wasn't for like 45 minutes, half an hour. It was up to 2 hours to 4 hours, sometimes 6 hours, just looking at this screen and escaping my body and not being here. And and so that echoed through my life quite a bit. And there was only the times where I came really into my body was when I was playing sport, when I was feeling passionate and really excited about something. And yet those feelings got muddled with the sensation of anxiety. And so this is where these multiple factors can come in to start confusing people of actually identifying what serves them and what doesn't serve them. And I've played that field as well, and I've even gotten into the disassociation through eating. As it's a very comfortable thing to do. My mom did it, I did it. I've still got residue of that sometimes by engaging in ways to comfort the sensations I have in my own body. And so we get to this idea that if I'm comforting, then I must be trying to cope of what's happening around me. And that is the big player of disassociation. And one of the core things I try to provide people in my sessions, it's not fixing your body. I'm not here to do any miracles. I always say that I'm here to create space within you to help you choose what you do and don't prefer. Because if we're not choosing from places that we can actually feel a center point from, it's a distorted center point, and then we're making choices from that point, and it's just not going to be lining up in the way we need them to be. So it's dissociation is actually a coping mechanism that I believe serves everyone. It works, it gets us through the day, it gets us through the things that life actually presents us. Being here on Earth, Gaia, it's not easy, it's not designed to be easy. And it's that process of going from childhood, all this conditioning, and becoming an adult and unconditioning the conditioning. That's the art of what it means to be an adult. And that's why they talk about working through childhood trauma. It helps unravel us to become that true being we once were. And we have the strength to hold ourselves again. So disassociation is very close to me, and there's such a deep understanding for why people engage in it and why people continue to engage in it. It is no judgment, and it's quite nice to sit with people who are exploring it and saying, oh, is that working for me? Is that correct? Is that actually going to service me? And I think there's absolutely no rush in it, because it all serves a purpose to getting us either through the day, or if you find that you want to resist it and choose something else, then you're engaging in that art of identifying, is that really what I like doing, or is that a habit that I get into, or is that addiction that I've got too? So disassociation brings up this huge umbrella of all these different factors, and there's so much to speak to really on it.
Love it. And in your journey, where did it begin? That awareness or that distinction that, oh, okay, so this is what I'm doing, and I want to find ways to expand my experience from it.
Interesting. It is definitely 2 points where I really recognized it wasn't serving me, but still engaged in it. So that's a big thing I want to highlight here, is that there was many points throughout my life where I recognized this isn't serving, but I still kept doing it, and that was the habit, and that was the thing that I really kept going back to. And that was because I wasn't changing anything else in my reality. I wasn't making my life any easier. I wasn't doing anything. I just kept going back to the coping, even though I knew it wasn't helping me. And this isn't meant to be, a big turnaround like, oh, but you do it like this. It's just something I did for a long time. And so I really have embodied that life of not choosing me properly. And that is what's led me to the way I live now. So I first realized these tendencies at the age of 13, 14. And that's when I began journaling too. I used to write about everything, and it was about the living arrangement I was in. It was about my schooling life, my schooling performance. There wasn't really much going well for me. And so that's why I escaped into these realms, into these places. And then once I got into really finding the things that lit me up inside, and they were derived from a lot of I guess competition in a way. I was very much into that masculine, like, I was an ice skater, I was a rower, and so I was really able to escape into the sport as well. So again, I really don't want to highlight like, oh, I did it the right way. It was just a different way of escaping. And it has very much been a prominent theme in my life, going into work and diving into that. And and then going into video games and diving into that, or going into sport and just exercising 14 times a week. It's a morning and night, lunch and night, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've definitely tried all these things. And the key word is tried. I was trying my best to not be in me, because there was this uncomfortability of trying to work out what has been happening and what was in my life. And then I really became fully conditioned. I was fully in that you could say rat race. Even though I knew about the rat race, it was like that mental outpace, like trying to out psych myself of, I know what I'm doing and I'm not going to fall into the trap of doing it. And yet I was doing it. I was fully in the corporate run of it all. And there's nothing wrong with corporate. It's just when you're being a victim to it, and you don't recognize it, and you're actually thinking you're outsmarting it, that's when you're really in it. Um, so I really forgot who I was. And once I moved from Adelaide to Melbourne, and I found some new friend groups, and they actually brought me into, I think I picked up my first dragon staff in 2021, which is a fire prop. And my friend Lily taught me, a very gorgeous friend, and that's when I started to really get into this. Oh, I can play. I can actually like roll this thing in my body. There's no one else judging me. I just want to get better because that's something I want to do. And then it started to unravel this nature in myself of, oh, I've shut off these elements of myself that I thought weren't serving me, that I didn't really need anymore because they didn't go towards my career path. And so that's when I started to really notice that there were parts of me that made me feel more alive than ever, not in an adrenaline way, but in a way that felt really nourishing, bubbling of the heart and the ribs. It just felt so nice, and I felt a part of a community as well. So that's kind of what began that journey. And from there, I found even more depth into understanding what passion was, and what trusting your flow is all about. And yeah, you can see there how it all started to build and make me into who I am right now.
That is so beautiful. Everything about it. And it's so relatable because we all do that.
Mm,
And varying degrees, varying slighter scales, but we all do that. And so it's just such a wonderful experience to have as a reference that, okay, so you had that and then you played with it, and you're doing these things to be able to move with it.
mm.
And as there is that background, where how do you know that you're embodied and you're
Yeah.
present?
Okay. I think the illusion, there is a bit of an illusion to the word embodied. I think there is an illusion to it because then you're trying to get to a state when you already are. And so
Oh,
you're already
oh,
in the
just
body.
a minute, just a second. Oh my God.
So that's the illusion. You're trying to get to somewhere. And it's the same thing as being. I've got to be that person. Oh, I remember being like this. I'm going to be that. It throws the baby out with the bathwater with what is right now. And it's a nice thing to know of, and it's a nice thing to recall to, but it can't be you right now unless you want to unlearn everything you've just been going through and go back to that other state. It throws a lot of salt into everything you've just been through in the last couple of days, the last couple of moments. You can't keep trying to imitate what you are. And so embodiment is more about saying, what am I right now? That's how you become embodied. You say, what am I right now? You say, I'm thinking a lot. It's okay, well, maybe I'll just feel what my heart does. And you just put your hand on your heart, and that's being embodied. And then you can maybe put your other hand on your stomach, and then now you're feeling your stomach, and it's just being with that area, and then you're being with this area, and then maybe you can let go of both parts and say, oh, now I can feel both those areas at the same time. And guess what, now you're embodied. That's it, nothing else to it, because it's your own guidance system. And then maybe it's the question of, what do I do once I'm embodied? And it's saying, okay, well, one, I know that my mind can see everything and perceive everything, and that helps me out. Two, my heart and my core, as long as they're not disrupted, if as long as there's no pain or interference in the way, they will tell me the truth of what I really inherently want to do. And so from there, we can then start looking at things and with a non-judgmental mind, start to suggest, oh, would I like doing that? And you can, if you can feel your heart and your core still, it will light up in different ways. Maybe it will contract, maybe it will tense up a little bit and say, no, I don't want to do that. And that's how you can start to build this conversation with your own body. And that becomes even more embodied. One thing I mentioned there, though, was that I was saying if there's no distortion, there's no pain before you've chosen anything. If there is that, there's something in there, there's a bit of pain that's, rearing up. It's almost like this light that makes you unable to see what's going on inside you. All you have to do is just put your hand over it and listen to it and just sit with the pain. Pain has this weird threshold meter where say the pain is at this level right now. It actually just needs you to boost the intensity of the pain up to here, and then it just drops down. It's a very weird phenomenon, but it's actually more to do with the case of it being heard, because we will move through our day of these signals that are just little subliminal messages. Same with itches. Have you ever thought to put your hand on an itch and not scratch it and just listen to it instead of scratching it? Have you ever thought to just see what happens when the itch comes up? It will move to a different part of your body. It won't stay there. It will jump. And then if you just follow that one, and you just follow that one, just follow the signals. They're just signals. And same with our navigation parts of our body. They're trying to let us know about something, or in a way where attention goes, energy flows. And so maybe our body isn't getting the energy flow that it needs. And so just giving the attention to the area will then give it the sustenance it needs to then get back online. And that's it. There's some ways to be more embodied. It's not take a breath and go do this yoga thing and da 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 da. These are very manual ways and very masculine ways, you could say, but also feminine, because it's a method, but then also we have to do listening and intent listening with it. So it plays with both. So maybe the answer is both. But I offer that as a suggestion.
Love it. Love it. And within that, there is this beautiful pearl of wisdom that, it's your body never lies. And that really stood out for me, that, we know it and we've heard it, but really to experience that with how you experience the world, that the body does not lie and the body is guiding you. It's telling you something. That is amazing. When and how, how do you work with that? And what are some of the things that come up? Like if the body is doing this, then generally it's, the clients are going through this. Like, is there like a structure? I know that I'm trying to be a little bit masculine here.
Yeah.
Is there something that people can use, like when something is happening, like you said, the itch, and it could be trying to say something? Are there any other things that people can pick up and try to find a meaning for?
Is that when we're live one-on-one with someone?
Yeah.
Okay. I think when we're live and when we are engaging with someone, maybe with a group of people, a group of friends, there's two things I really want to make a really clear concept to. One, it's live. You just need to go with what you're feeling at the time. If there is an irk, if there is a trust it, follow it, because there probably is something that doesn't feel right. Or if there is a Christmas tree lighting up inside you that feels warm, then keep going with that and take the mind off of it, because that's the art of trusting your flow. Really, and that will be an art that you can keep building on, just following whatever this is saying and whatever your core is saying. That is important. Now, on to the other side of things. If we're looking less about the physicality of this organ here and this organ here, when we're with people, the second you're in 1.5 meters, I think it is, of a person, you're in their field. And so from that point onwards, you can pick up anything. You can pick up any energy that they might be having lingering around them, in them, festering about them, and that can sometimes just glide across you. It can glide on you, and it can sometimes get a bit sticky too. So yes, you may have a navigation system that is true and tells you the truth, and yet sometimes this energy can cloud it's not here to destroy it. It won't do anything like that, but we can sometimes take on other people's energy, and what's happening is that we're processing that energy. You could say it's just being filtered, almost like there's like a bacteria, or we've just eaten like a lot of food and now our body's trying to digest it. We didn't say yes to it, it just happens. And we can take on other people's stuff by being around them. And it speaks to this whole concept that I can't get into today because it is too large. But what I can offer is that sometimes, and most of the cases, it's probably not you that is making you feel all funky. It's just that you haven't probably released the energy that's in you. And so, in regards to how we can go about this, there's three core principles you need to understand. There is action, word, and intent. As long as you're doing all three, you can tell the universe to do whatever, especially with the energy that's being stuck on you and your body. So if you feel like there's something there, you can just chuck your hand on your heart or on your core, wherever you want to, where you feel like, oh, it feels cloudy, I can't really see. Or even if you're not sure, you can just say, I release the energy that is not mine. I no longer wish to process someone else's energy. Or you can say, I decharge the energy from my body. I know I release the energy from so and so, that person that you might be with, and let it release. And you can say it silently in your head too, and you can just kind of just let it release. And the final little key is that our exhale is our best friend with releasing anything and everything, from stagnant energy to trauma that's in us to when we're puffed out, we're going to release the what's it called? Lactic acid. We breathe that out. Out breath services us in so many ways. And so if you're ever getting a remedial massage, or if you're getting treatment from somewhere, that exhale is going to boost the quality of the healing for yourself, because you are in charge of how fast you want things to go, and that exhale is going to be the one that does it. If you're wondering what to do on the inhale, simply just breathe in light. That's it. Any and big meditation you listen to, it's breathe in the light and breathe in the light. They got it right. Just breathe in light. But the exhale is your chance to breathe out whatever energy needs to come out, especially when we're saying, I release the energy that is no longer mine, and it comes out. So there's some real clear methods that people can select to that would hopefully service them, and it might work. Maybe it is them, maybe it's not them. I can't say.
I love it. I love it. And we do pick a lot of stuff. We interact and we engage so much, and we don't consciously use a discernment all the time that, okay, that's not for me, so that's okay. I'm going to respect it and hold my vibration and allow it to work itself out. And we can kind of lose something in that interplay.
Yeah.
I was also wondering whether there is some kind of a manual or some kind of a guide, even if it's a very rough one, of, oh, usually when a person's left elbow is hurting, um, there's these kind of experiences that come with it. Or when the lower back is hurting, so generally this is the area of stuck energy or dissociation that's happening. Is there anything like that? Or it's just, oh, everything is in the flow, so it could be anything?
Yes, and also a little bit undefined. I think there's a lot of great teachers out there who say and point to certain areas and say it's this and say it's that. I think I can say the ones that people are generally agree on, which is the shoulders hold the responsibilities, and you can also say the hands, if there's stuff in the hands, it's about giving and receiving.
Mm.
The rest all kind of are a bit alluding to me sometimes, but I can tell you one thing, is that the left side of the body is feminine and the right side of the body is masculine. And so with that, you can kind of go into more of the law of genders, which is again from Hermetics. But this helps us understand what behaviors we might be doing in particular ways in our life that might be creating that issue. And so, if we're doing things too strongly, if we're trying to be too structured, if we're trying to force things through, it might be on that right side that might be coming through as an injury. On the left side, we might not be honoring the time we need to relax, the time that we actually need to re-nourish ourselves. So it might be coming through as an issue on the left side. Again, this is just a very subsurface understanding, and it may not actually work for a lot of people because the signal that they might be having might be coming from a problem somewhere else too. And so it's important to follow where the end issue is, which is typically somewhere in the core. A lot of the issues on the outside are from issues in the deeper core. If someone's got a bum ankle or a bum knee, that's typically because of something in the lower hip. So one thing I can offer, in not so much of a spiritual sense, but more in a physicality sense, and something that why I practice so prominently in the belly, is because any neck issues are typically because of hip issues. And if we slice the center of the body and flip it around to have the hip and the neck and the head side by side, you'll see they mirror exactly. And so issues of your jaw is typically issues because your side of your hips. And so why I say belly is because if our core isn't online, I know for women, if they've got menstruation issues, it's like turning the stomach offline and having a lower back engage. And so you can see how we've got this L-shape issue going on, where if nothing's happening in the core, it leads to lower back issues. And if the lower back issues are causing trouble, then the neck's going to also have trouble too. And there's this big, flow-on effect of, hey, stuff in the core needs to be worked out. And guess what's in our core? There's organs, there's all these muscles, there's all these subliminal things that we don't like touching. In fact, anyone who's listening to this, if I told you just to put your hands on your stomach right now and really feel into what's going in there or what's happening around it, I would probably suggest to think about, well, what food did you have recently? And then, have you been breathing through your stomach? And if you try right now to breathe really low, can you do it? And then also, have you also been slouching in that time too? Are you actually engaged? And the way we can get around, not engaging our core enough is actually by grabbing onto the side of our ribs and pushing on them and breathing against it 2 times. And then we can push from the front and breathe in and out 2 times. And then 2 times in the back as well. And once we've done that routine, we can try breathing outward with our ribs. And you'll feel the trunk of our body, of the hips start to engage, and that is what it's like to be fully supported by our lower half, while also allowing the stomach to breathe and the chest to breathe. It's that width breath, not the up and down breath or just the belly breath. So that's I know we do energy stuff, but that's physically something that people can stay a little bit alert to.
Wow, I love that. And I can totally, it really hits home because I have a, TMJ issue. So I grind my teeth and all of that. It's been maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing you went to. You went for my lower back. And I was like, no, that's not where it's hurting. It's hurting here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's starting from here. And then it really worked. So I really experienced what you're saying, and I can absolutely vouch for how the body works. It's not always at one place means only that one thing. It's everything is connected and is corresponding within the body.
Yeah.
And such a beautiful understanding of that.
Mm.
And that got me curious about one other aspect, which I would really love to play with you on. And that is the masculine and the feminine. What is your perspective about the interaction between the masculine and the feminine, and the swing between the masculine and feminine? I know that you have had some really profound experiences in, your exploration of what these two concepts mean to you. So yeah, we'd love to know where what that exploration is and where that's taking you.
Yeah, for sure. I personally love this concept of I had it from it was given to me from my teacher Sally for Zentai, and she offered this story of the divine masculine, who sits in the center point of the universe, who sits in deep meditation. They meditate for 4,000 years, if that's even a big scale to them, and they sit in that well structured, calm, deep, um, element within themselves. And what happens around them is the universe starts to be created from their gravitational pull. And the feminine is the one actually weaving and creating the universe around that masculine. Because the masculine is this center point that the feminine can trust and come out and around to. And if you can see what I'm actually drawing right now, it's actually the flower of life. It bounces around that center point and moves around. And both serve a very important piece in that they play their roles to complete to complete I can't get the word. They completely commit to what they are engaging in, and it shows that real split in, okay, well, if I'm going to be moving and flowing today, that's a bit more of my feminine side, and I'm going to be engaged in that locked in focus, and I know exactly what I'm aiming for, and I'm going for that, and I'm going to be quite um, structured in how I step and how I move to the next step. That is that more masculine flow. And so that's one idea. And it's a very beautiful, easy concept to take home. And
So elegant.
yeah, and it would be a bit awry for me to not speak to a recent revelation I've had too.
Yeah.
As we get deeper into evolving our consciousness of what really is feminine and what's masculine, how each supports and how each provides, the masculine isn't always not moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes the roles switch, especially if there is a partnership of the feminine and the masculine. Imagine the case where the feminine is with child and is pregnant. And so they can't move and they can't create because they're creating a universe within inside them. So what does the masculine do? The masculine then goes out and provides that support and exits and comes back and protects and services and goes out and comes back and services and bees with, because the feminine is now experiencing and creating and crafting a life within them inside the womb. And so now we've got this other perspective, but still mostly the same, because again, the feminine in that original concept was flowing around the universe, weaving and creating in that big dance of flow. And then when they are pregnant, they are actually creating in that more internal, going into that void of actually creating life within them. And then in the flip side, for the masculine, in that first one, they were creating that gravitational pull, that magnetic force for the woman to come back to and flow out, because they are so knowing of what they are. And that knowing of themselves actually allows for the woman to come back to and trust. And even if they may be going through whatever idea or thought in their day, not to discredit, it really is that beauty of fully experiencing all dimensions. They can trust that the masculine is going to be constant, is going to be that constant state of, hey, I'm thinking like this today. What are you thinking? I'm like this. Okay, thank cool. Okay, I know you're going to be like that. I can trust that, and I can go back out and experience all the fluidity of the world. And then in that other story I was describing of the woman being pregnant, the masculine knows the woman needs support. And so he goes out and obtains and comes back, and then goes out and obtains and comes back and serves it and knows what he needs to get and goes and gets it. And so that is actually the polarity of both. And so you can swing between the two again. So there I've described two really clear models of the divine masculine, divine feminine, and that people can attribute qualities to within themselves. And they can then idealize what they would like to be like in that day. And we are moving into a world that is more feminine driven, not women power, but more in that style of living, in that we now can become more embodied with the world around us, which means being connected with nature a bit more. It means feeling into ourselves, the feelings that are inside of us, and actually attending to them and servicing them, because that is what is being sent to us for a particular reason, to either address or to action. Where previously we lived in that male focused world, which was fine. It got things done. It drove the industrial revolution. It led us to conquer and to create countries and to culminate. And that can still be done with the feminine too, but we needed to understand and experience that in that period before. And so now we're in that converting from the masculine to the feminine. And again, would you not believe, AI will help us, because AI will do those hard hitting focused jobs, and now we can get back to attending what it does to enriching us, because there are some jobs out there people do that don't actually give them quality of life, don't give them that life that they want to live. It might give them the money and they say that's enough, but it's not ticking all the boxes. And we really want to get back to that ticking all the boxes kind of living. And so we've been given this time to be alive where, hey, we can actually start to slow up here and let this do the masculine style of work, and we can get into that creating. We can get into that flowing with ourselves. And that is the dynamic that is at play right now.
Oh, so beautifully explained. I've never seen it like that before. And it was so interesting when you were talking about the masculine and the feminine. So, and then you spoke about the feminine and the masculine. So, with your actions, with how your hands were flowing, I could see that the feminine is more curves and the masculine is more straight lines.
Mhm.
And it is just so profound how we are kind of a combination of the two, and we're consciously or unconsciously choosing which orientation serves us.
Yeah.
And I was curious whether you felt there was a certain kind of a polarity or an inclination from your corporate job to now what you do. Is there even a shift there?
Is there a shift in the way of being and thinking? It magically so. I guess there has to be, because otherwise I wouldn't be giving the quality of therapies I do now. I'm not able to trust my flow as such. There's quite a lot of rigor and rules and also social constructs that do not allow people to be the way they want to be. I mean, my last HR job, I dyed my hair blue just to kickstart the job, because I was beginning to unravel the identity that had shaped and conditioned me. I was just beginning to unravel it. And so I was testing the boundaries of being myself. And so you can remain in these corporate environments. Just make sure you're allowed to be yourself more and more. The world is changing. You can be yourself. It's totally fine. It's just whether or not the work you're doing in front of that computer is actually giving you life, or if it's actually draining and taking away from your cup. And it's really easy to imagine a cup that is whatever amount of liquids in it, and you say, okay, I want to do this task here. Is that going to take away or fill my cup? And it can be your measure. And then that might be the reality check that's going to really tick you over the line to start questioning what you're doing. And I'm sorry if that does lead to any big changes, but it's going to be for the best, because you shouldn't be working by not, if it's not filling a cup, then you really shouldn't be engaging in it. And that applies to friends, family, a lot of things larger in life, because it's not so much the avoidance of it taking away from your cup. It's saying, hey, my cup's already this high. I can't go any lower than that until it's going to really take away from a lot of me. And so we can engage in some things that take away from our cup a little bit. And that's really important when it comes to supporting friends, supporting family, because I heard myself say, don't engage in people in family that take away from your cup. But sometimes people need that support, and you should be offering and servicing that way, because that does help support the greater collective and flow to things. I mean, talking to someone about their passion helps you be more passionate. And so in that, there's always a dance of it all. So I yeah, and one thing I wanted to offer as well, when you said the curve of feminine and the straight line of masculine, I really want to say that both are under the law of know thyself. If you know yourself to a complete degree, that straight line will be completely crisp and straight. If you know yourself as a woman, that line is going to be so clearly curved and not zigging as it curves around. Both apply. And so a flower that has perfect ring petals around it is a flower that knows itself, that is being itself in its most prominent way. And same with the man. A steel pole is completely straight and strong. It doesn't have those little kinks or wavers. It doesn't know itself fully. And I offer this because as we begin to figure out what that flow is in ourselves, if we start to say, oh, maybe I don't like flowing like that, or maybe I don't like doing things like that, it's so important to make you more stable as the energy field that you are. I know I said energy field then, that might lose a few people, but even the structure of your body reflects your energy. And so if we don't know ourselves and we're moving in ways that aren't actually fully us, it's going to be that little bit of awkward vibration, skittering of what we are trying to be. And we are the mixture of both feminine and masculine. And so it's important that we identify what we are, not so much the action is. It's our affinity to the action. It's how we are feeling towards behaving in that way, and then trusting that if people don't prefer that, they can simply, that it helps us know that they're not meant to be around us right now, and it helps us choose who we do and don't prefer. And now I'm onto this whole other topic of choosing the right people to be in your life, and you can't do that if you're not being your full self. So
And that's beautiful. There are two things that I wanted to talk about. So I'm kind of like debating where to go. One
yeah.
of the areas is there at all a kind of preferred polarity of gender, or the orientation of masculine and feminine in a corporate job versus a job where it's more flow based? I kind of know I kind of can assume and assign one to each, but is it really that black and white
Yeah.
that the corporate job is masculine and the massage and healing arts are only feminine? Like, is it even a thing?
Mm. It's I'm actually going to say it's sometimes the corporate life is neither, because it's more of a doing rather than knowing the right thing to do. And sometimes people excel when they know the right things to do, and but there isn't really much room for that creative process of feminine. So now we're kind of cherry picking the qualities of the divine feminine, divine masculine to make up what would measure to be what people are engaging in corporate life. Um, so I guess we've got to kind of understand that even though divine feminine, divine masculine helps us understand ourselves, when we step into that social environment of the hierarchy of our bosses, of the work that needs to be done, we probably shouldn't try to get too harsh on ourselves with exactly what we're doing. We just need to make sure that what we're doing resonates within us, because this is, if we don't have that prominent understanding, we can just revert again, surrender the mind. You don't have to work anything out. Just go back to what the heart and what the stomach is telling us, because that is really our guide in all of this. And maybe the signs that start popping up, maybe you get little signals to say, hey, keep an eye out for this. Or maybe the music you're listening to at the moment can be a little indicator. I think getting too over analytical starts to activate the mind, and the mind doesn't need to be working out anything. It is only here to perceive. It is as simple as that. When we're starting to make all these complicated, calculated decisions, we're now going further than what is the straightforward answer. And it's always simple. It really is always simple in that way. It might not seem simple because it's a big choice, especially if you're now taking this information saying, well, I want to quit my job. Hey, make sure that you have the support in your life to do it as well. You can't just jump into it because spirits say, yes, do it. You got to make sure you've got the support you need to do before you jump into it too, which means calculating if you've got some income coming in, if you've got to do these other things. But when I say the mind only perceives, it's because when we allow the drop in from our higher selves, which is also us. I mean, you can just imagine my face up in the sky right now. That's my higher self, and that's me. We're both the same person. I'm just cut off from it so I can fully experience this right now. That's the only reason why there's segregation. And that's why we can sometimes get very upset and angry, because we're disconnected from ourselves, literally from our higher selves. When can't even talk to other me right now because I'm here experiencing it. But if I want to connect, it's as simple as taking a breath and bringing our attention back to our bodies and allowing our bodies to talk, because the body is the antenna that connects us to anything and everything, which is why eating's so important and why breathing and exercising, all these things you can get into, it's so important, because if our antenna isn't working, we're going to feel even more disconnected and lost in all of this.
Oh, beautiful. And I really like how you define the corporate world as maybe even neither, because we're not experiencing, we're doing. Like we're doing. No, what was the word you used? Yeah, we're just doing, we are not being. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder if there is any guidance or tip that you can share with people who are wanting to explore. I know one of the tip that came up was don't free fall into it, because you want to keep an income coming and you want to make those calculations so that you can take care of yourself in the physical realm in this reality.
Mm.
And so, with that, is there anything more that comes up for you to share? Because you've gone through this journey of
Yeah.
transitioning from a stable, full time income, structured life in that way, going to an office, coming back. I think you're still doing that, but it's different into what
Mm.
you really want to do. And you're making those choices. So, any tip for anyone who wants to make that transition?
Mm. So everyone's experience is going to be so individual, but we can have tools that help guide us along the way, which is one method called automatic writing. Great method, and it is the gateway into all our psychic abilities. Really, legitimately, I think anyone who is psychic and has journaled at some point and has seen the information that's come through just our hands, and oh, lo and behold, our hands are smarter than us. That's my life story. So automatic writing, just quickly, is just opening up a page of book and just allowing our thoughts to empty out onto the page. And then we can start to ask questions onto the page. Like you can just write, what should I do next? And then you have a thought come through, and you just need to action the first thought and write it out. And even if there's thoughts that don't make sense, just write it. And it's almost like building a muscle. That we're building a thread that connects us back up to our higher selves, which is the one talking back to us.
Mm.
Now, again, I can anticipate some people thinking, well, what if it's my thought thinking my thought? Guess what? It doesn't matter. It's the actual practice of writing it out onto paper and starting to get comfortable with writing and trusting what's coming out, because this only talks to us when we trust it more and more. And now we're in this principle of self-love and self-trust. The self-love is ultimate forgiveness of self for when we make a mistake, we do things the wrong way. But the quicker we can give us the self-love and forgive ourselves and go back into loving ourselves, the better.
Mm.
Self-trust is engaging in not only is engaging in the art of following through with what's being guided, and also consistently doing it too. You can't do one without the other. You can't just do it once and then bam, self-trust is there. It's actually the continuous engagement to choose ourself, which is also to help connect with ourselves as well. I can really hear what I've been saying there, and it's very confusing. Self-trust is listening to what's coming through and actioning it, and also consistently re-engaging in it as well. It's those two. Okay.
So the
Now,
directional and the follow up with that direction.
for self-trust, yeah, and then the self-love is the forgiveness, because sometimes we're not always consistent, and then we've got to bring in the self-love to say, it's okay, I love myself, it's fine, I didn't choose myself today, totally understand, and then I'm going to go back into it, and then we're going to go at it again, and again that builds even more self-love and self-trust.
Mm.
You did ask, however, how we can make the transition out of corporate into what we really want to do.
Yeah. If corporate is not what you really want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, any job that you don't want to do, it's very okay. Okay, so we will always be supported in whatever we are energetically attracted to. I was going to say passion and whatever excited you, but sometimes it's not always the happiest thing. It's just whatever. It's this energetic quality to being to what we're being pulled towards. It's this magnetic attraction. It's this untangible sensation of I should go do that. I feel like going doing that. The more you follow that, the more things are going to start um, coming through for you. And you got to make sure the ego stays out of it. I can't really say exactly how the ego activates within you, but know that if there's an energetic quality to the, picking up the cup here or stretching over here, whichever one seems more great for you, you've got to engage in. It's that self-trusting. Oh, okay, I'm hearing this. Okay, I'll try that out. I'll get out of my own mental thought of like, why would I do that right now? Why would I go lie on the floor? It's not so much knowing the point of doing it, it's just doing it. Because you can't actually see past the hill that you're on right now. They always describe it as the higher self being at the top of the hill looking down and yelling us instructions on what to do. But we're in the thick of the hill and we're like, well, there's a tree over there and this sign says go this way. And our higher selves are saying go to the tree instead. And we're like, but it says do this. It's like, you've got to just trust. And that's the whole point, because you don't know when you get to the tree, you see the path is actually blocked and you got to go through the tree to get around to the actual path, the way to get it, the way to go. So there's a lot of things you can try to do, but it's actually your internal guidance system and trusting that and dropping away from the mind.
Love it. And such an interesting coinage that you move towards what you're energetically attracted to. That's very clever. It's not what you love to do, because we don't always act on what we love to do. So
Yeah. And
beautiful.
love is a bit fleeting. Happiness is fleeting. Excitement is fleeting. And it's if it's the one thing I know is my mind is so proficient in re-engineering these concepts into something that services itself. So, and not in a good way either. It's so geared to saying, oh, well, this gave you love last time. Well, just do that again. And it just removes the creative process and allowing whatever way it's meant to manifest. And same with happiness. I mean, if we're doing something to be happy, then you've lost the point of being happy, because you can choose to be happy at any point. You can choose to be in love with the world around you. I mean, that's a really good one of my favorite phrases is, you're always one thought away from ecstasy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm in ecstasy right now, and it just happens and you're just in it. And it sounds manipulative, but you're just one thought away from convincing yourself you're in it. I mean, it's just that. So now we know that we can actually engineer our experiences. And so now we've got to be conscious of the ego doing that just to service it in one way. I know I've talked about something really nice there and now bringing it back, because this might be the lesson people are up to, that they're actually gearing their emotions to service them. It's like, whatever is going on, there's still going to be that energetic attraction to go do something. There's going to be that little drop in to try something else, and you've got to listen to it and follow through. So it's up to you now to have that relationship with yourself, the ego, and the higher self, to really choose and discern what is actually right for you. And that is your own journey.
Oh, how can I even speak a word after this? It's so beautifully said. Really. Yeah. I'm just soaking it in. And yeah. There's again that aspect of flow within it. And with that, I also wanted to, I want to stay in this space, but I also want to ask you some more questions. So there's one more, if we have time, there's one more. I mean, we've gone past, but yeah.
That's time.
One more question I wanted to ask is, you are playing with a lot of themes, a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts right now. So whether it be the human design, or whether it be a new some other new concept, I know you have a bunch of concepts you talk about. Yeah. Which one is most exciting for you to play with right now, and what are you creating as this? What are you becoming right now?
Okay. The one that's is definitely I'm going to say theme. A theme for me is this idea of activating the heart and learning how it is like a flower that opens and contracts.
Mm.
Now, this might sound very weird to a lot of people, but it's something that I'm just fresh into and something that I'm really identifying to because guess what? Every spiritual person always ends up saying love, and people always end up saying love is the greatest power. And I tell you, I've been using it in some of my practices, and sometimes I use my heart to shine a light onto where I'm working, and they feel it, and it's like, whoa. So let me backtrack here. The core theme for me right now is staying true to my heart and actually identifying how it's feeling in every moment, and also clearing any energy that I'm picking up for it, generating energy within it. So what's the actual theme? The theme is choosing not only to action my heart, but also give it the love and care to be with it. Because a lot of times in our life, we're going to be choosing things that lead us forward into our careers, that lead us further into working out our body, and work us further into servicing ourselves or servicing the other person in a relationship, but doesn't actually allow for love. Everything I identified them isn't actually from a state of love. They're just things we're doing, right? And so it's that doing that gets in the way of love, which is so multifaceted and is this, you can imagine it's just this um, almost like a quad beam of light that entwirls and ravels on itself, but then also unravels and circles back around. It is unlimited in the way it can actually manifest, but it can be so singularly it can be limited in that singular mindset that then doesn't allow it to expand in itself because it is its own aura and it is our own connection, as I heard from you, Samridhi, it's our own connection straight to source. So for me, it's definitely the art of listening to it. I mean, for me, a really funny thing, and it's been a massive thing in my life to think one thing is one way for it to be another way. I thought my chest being tight was my asthma for my whole life. Turns out it was actually me not being with my heart and me not being in myself enough. And so it was that escapism. And then I was trying to get in as much breath as I could because I felt like I didn't have myself in me. So I was trying to bring more stuff external into me to make myself feel in me. And then I couldn't breathe all the way out because I wasn't able to release the stuff that was in my heart because I wasn't grieving properly. And so we've got this dynamic now that I hope supports some people who listen to it, that when we think something might be psychological, it just might be because we're not thinking of it in the right way. And so the second I started being with my heart, and trusting my heart has the space to breathe, my asthma went away. I haven't had asthma for the last four months because of it, which is pretty huge. And I'm saying it's a cure to asthma for everyone. Some people literally have physiological issues with this, and I was identified of having that. I've had asthma since I was 2, but it also could have been because my childhood didn't allow for much love in the way that love was needed. Love was given, but it wasn't the way it was needed for me. And so that's the current theme I have and one that I offer. But maybe it's a little bit too loose. The way we open up the heart is we actually need to sit. I mean, there's a meditation that I can offer out and I can attach to it. It's from This is Maria, and she does a higher heart opening. And once I opened up my higher heart, which is just in the thymus up here, we've got the lower heart and the higher heart that can work in unison together to help us process grief. And the reason why this is so important is because once we're running energy through our higher heart to process, it removes the energetic stickiness of our foot being stuck in the previous timeline, and we're wanting to take the step into the next step of our lives. So we think of every step we take in our life, we're actually slowly stepping up, and maybe we take little tiny steps, but we're ready to make a nice big step. We haven't processed what's from before, and we're trying to process it from up here. Have you ever tried to cry from up here instead of cry through your heart? It makes a very big difference to
Yeah,
cry up.
I'm a crier, so I've never, before it reaches here, it always just comes straight.
And no one, yeah. And so you're doing it. You just did it right. And so no one talks about that method, but I always used to cry from my mind. Like, I want to cry, I want to like get it out, but it's actually up here that needs to be cried out through. And so this, even speaking to that really enlivens me, because this is the stuff that people need to hear about the way in which to do things to help them actually do the things they want to do. That's it. I just need a method. Yes, I want to cry, but how the frick do I cry? Do I just think about sad things? Do I do this in a certain way? Like, no, like it's probably because you're trying to cry out through that way and get the tears out, but it needs to come up through here. And then also, if you are very, I think they say sacral centered, you know, you've got a sacral authority, humming and actually using the core to hum and come up through that way again. This is where the emotions are stored. The emotions aren't stored up here. So that's the theme that I'm currently playing with and want to unravel more, because yeah, they're probably right. Love is probably the most powerful thing, and I'm on my path to increasing its capacity, not in a geared way, but just being with it, and it will naturally grow in itself.
Humming, beautiful. And yeah, I've never really seen it that way. I never understood, or like I never thought of the concept that some people would want to cry, because I've always been a crier and I've been stuck with the label of crybaby all my years in school. And I watch a movie, I watch an ad and I can cry.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really a struggle with not crying, you
Mm.
know. And here what I'm hearing is it's actually and of course I did acknowledge in myself that it was beautiful. It's a part of myself that I've begun to love. And so from what I'm hearing is you're becoming and embodying all of that. Even if I use the word embodiment, what I really mean is being and becoming more and more of the love that you are.
Yes. Yeah.
You- And I want to ask some questions that are less concepts and more, this world,
Let's
because I
go.
know that a lot of our readers, or a lot of our listeners would want to know you and what you do. So if there's a way to define what you do and what people can come to you for, and how you can help them.
Sure. Currently, I offer services of Zentai Shatsu, which is a movement-based therapy. And as you mentioned before, I work on that holistic level. So you might have heard little snippets throughout this whole interview that suggest that, that there's little methods that are actually not being addressed, such as the belly work that can help service the lower back and the neck. And there's also this concept that I work under, which is just giving you the space for you to make the choices for yourself within your own body. And that means being pain free. It means having your energy move throughout you. And that all can be achieved in a simple 90-minute Zentai session, Zentai Shetsu session. And so I offer that as one of my services. And I also offer psychotherapy and counseling online. And uh, very soon I'll be releasing more and more content online to hopefully provide little PDFs or audio clips for people to maybe help them access certain things that they've been wanting to do. Throughout this interview, there's little gems that I'm happy to expand on for people if there is a desire for. I think there is a demand for simplicity in the spiritual world, really bringing the ambiguity away back into clear steps for people to choose and move from. And there's so much content online. It's amazing. And I'm just gonna throw my hat in to help support those who need it. And the best part about all of it is that energetically I'll attract anyone who needs to hear my content. But I'm going to be in the way of that if I don't post it now. So, and I offer that as a little slice for everyone and anyone listening, that if you felt that calling in you to make the change and even to share what you do to be more passionate, it is really because you're going to be living more passionately. And through that being your most authentic self, it will help other people be themselves too. And if there's information you've got to share, there's going to be that one person or many people who need to hear it from you and the way that you articulate it. And that's the current lesson I'm in right now. And that's why this interview is so important, because this is the beginning of why I need to start sharing. Because as you said, there's some ways I'm articulating things that haven't been articulated in that way before. And well, okay, all right, I'll tell it more loudly because if that helps that person then be more like themselves, then I'm going to be living in a world where people are being themselves and I can then correctly choose who I want to be and not be with.
Oh, beautiful and amazing. And I want to say that everything that you do, and the slice of experiences I've had with you of doing the Shiatsu session, blah, 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 Zentai Shiatsu session,
You
and
got it.
and even our other explorations and conversations together, there's just such a rich space that you provide, and that incredible sense of safety that you can't be wrong. You can't go wrong with being yourself. That's the kind of energy that I really enjoy. That's the space that I really enjoy with you. And so, anyone who's listening to this and wants to explore fully being in your moment and in your process, I like highly recommend, because of course you're a friend and I have so much respect for what you do. Any last words before we wrap up?
I think one of the best advice I can give people to accessing that full acceptance of people is that by people making the mistakes and not rescuing them, they help to really achieve that lesson. They will only be able to hear what you say once, and then from there, it's up to them to choose whether they want to action it and take it on board. And so, true love and true compassion. It's not a fairy thing. It is true love and true compassion comes from that wide open support, but letting them make the mistakes and saying, "Hey, I'm here to catch you if you really fall hard, but you've got you, and I'm here to watch you win it." And the beauty of it all is to then see that in every single person in what they do and not be out there because you're on your big spiritual growth, your big spiritual journey. It's you, it's your journey, and you allow whatever people want to do. You're not there to teach them, you're there to role model what it is to be living that life. And that puts you into the frequency to move you into the world that you want to get to.
Again, articulated so beautifully. And yeah, I'm going to have to listen to the recording again. And there are so many areas that I wanted to go into. Wanted to know about the fire spitting dance that you do,
Yeah.
and all your new explorations of concepts and models that you're playing with. But I just have other things to do, so we have a little limited time now.
Yeah.
So maybe we have a part two of this interview, and we go
Part
into
two could be
that.
good. Part two, good. Different clothing, but same people.
Yes, and maybe different background.
Yeah, maybe the other side of the door. I don't know. We'll see. Amazing. Thank you, Samridhi, for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for opening your heart and sharing all the intricacies and the shades and the flow within your field and within who you know yourself to be, and are knowing yourself to be shared with all of us. It's really profound, and um, I just enjoy talking with you anytime. And this was amazing.
Honor. Thank you.